Welcome to the Titan Talks webinar to listen to and learn from the third speaker in this year's new innovation series. I'm John Corton. I'm the director of the Petrick Idea Center at Illinois Wesleyan University. The Petrick Idea Center will be a state-of-the-art 50,000 square foot living, learning, and creating community that we'll be building right here on the beautiful IWU campus. It'll have a flexible common areas, fully equipped maker and creator spaces, and residential capacity for up to 80 of the university's most innovative and entrepreneurially minded students. Here, all students at Illinois Wesleyan across every major and discipline will practice collaborative, cross-discipline creativity with a conscience as they live, learn, and create, develop their skills, and launch the products, services, and initiatives that become the virtuous solutions to vital problems. The Petrick Idea Center will offer students, alumni, and the community lifelong learning and engagement opportunities. This quarterly innovation series that we introduced last January is a perfect example of what's to come. This series features alumni and university supporters, like our guest speaker today, who are creating, changing, and disrupting the products and services that will exist in the mid-21st century innovation economy. Assisting us with moderating the Q&A segment of today's event is Evan Turnbull. Evan is a junior majoring in data analytics, and his hometown is right here in Bloomington, Illinois. Evan is a past competitor in the Titan New Venture Challenge twice, and he interned with State Farm this past summer. A few housekeeping items before we get started. You're viewing today's webinar as an audience member. Therefore, you will not have the ability to turn on your video or your microphone. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted through the Q&A feature. Haden will answer questions at the end unless a burning question comes up that Evan brings to his attention. If you have a technical issue, you may reach out to the Office of Alumni Engagement at 309-556-3145 or by email at iwualum@iwu.edu. A recording of today's webinar will be available to view on the Office of Alumni Engagement YouTube page. You'll be sent a link and a short survey in the days ahead. Illinois Wesleyan is very honored to have Haden Kirkpatrick as the third speaker of our innovation series. Haden is the Vice President of Innovation and Venture Capital at State Farm. He is responsible for leading the Labs at State Farm department, where they leverage the power of innovation to bring new technologies to market and new value propositions to State Farm customers. He joined State Farm in March 2021 to help lead the insurance industry toward the creation of more innovative, customer-centric, and sustainable future. Prior to starting his career in insurance, Haden spent 15 years in the mobile telecommunications industry, where he led numerous functions across sales, marketing, product, and strategy. Throughout his career in mobile telecom, Haden worked in both the mobile carrier side of the business, most notably at T-Mobile USA, as well as the technology platform side of the business at Motricity and Amdocs. Haden joined the insurance industry in 2015 when he accepted the role of head of marketing strategy and innovation at Esurance, where he led the repositioning of the Esurance brand. Following that success, Haden and his team were recruited to lead the future state design sprint for the transformative growth program at Allstate. As a result, Haden is very well versed in merging customer centricity, innovation management, and advanced technologies to deliver compelling, market-defining value plans that drive top-line growth and bottom-line efficiencies. In his free time, Haden enjoys spending time with his wife, exercising, being outdoors, cooking, reading, and gaming. Welcome, Haden Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, John, and thank you all for having me. John, can I get a quick thumbs up? Am I coming through audio? Excellent.
Yes, you're
Thank you very much. And I'm so excited to be here speaking with the folks at Illinois Wesleyan, and I'm proud to be a part of the Titan Talk series. As an executive and leader, it's always important to give back to the communities that have helped form and shape your success as you move throughout your career. And I cannot emphasize enough how much education and specifically community engagement and stakeholder engagement has helped me as a leader. And I do hope that this is a valuable session for you all, both as you consider where you want to go with your careers and as you chart your careers towards the future success that you envision for yourself. So thank you all for having me again. I'm really excited to talk to you today about innovation at scale, and specifically how State Farm thinks about innovation. As John mentioned, I'm a veteran of the mobile telco industry, and I spent my time in a lot of business-facing functions, including the consumer and business side, as well as the technology and innovation side. And I made a jump to the insurance industry in 2015 when I started at Esurance. Interestingly, when I decided to switch categories, my friends asked me pretty extensively, why is a technology and innovation professional going to work in the insurance industry? Particularly going into the industry from being in mobile telco, which is a very fast-moving, very new category. My friends and former colleagues were confused about why I would go and hop categories into insurance, which has a bit of a perception of being a little staid and out of date. The response to that is pretty clear. That's where innovation is needed. As an innovation professional, you look for areas where the market and the consumer perception of the market might be a little bit behind the current capabilities in either technology or business management. And that creates wedge and disruption opportunities that all innovators seek out. After spending some time at Esurance, I decided to come and join State Farm as the VP of Innovation and Venture Capital, to which my friends asked me, why are you going to work for the oldest company in the insurance industry as an innovator? And the answer to this question is the same, because that's where innovation is most needed. Also, if you are looking to change a category, joining the largest and most influential company in the category is a pretty good way to get started. So I decided that State Farm would be the right place for me because as an industry leader, what we do here at State Farm shapes the way the category overall responds. And if you can determine a way to innovate at State Farm scale and with the kind of innovation speed that modern technologies and processes can bring to bear in the innovation practice, you can really change an entire trillion-dollar category, because the power that State Farm brings to its operations is so broad and the brand is so strong that you just have the ability to reshape what a category could be in consumers' minds. What I did not fully understand until I started at State Farm was that innovation is in State Farm's DNA. Although State Farm is a 100-year-old company, it is still very innovative and has been innovative its entire 100 years. And there's a reason for that. Innovation ultimately comes down to several things. You have to have the right mindset for innovation. You have to have the right methodology for innovation. And then you have to converge that mindset and that methodology often enough and frequently enough to build the muscles of innovation that allow you to move at speed and with agility. We'll talk a little bit about the methodology and the muscle component at the back half of the PowerPoint here. But the most important thing to note at the start is without the right mindset, the methodology and the muscle really will struggle. As an innovator, you need a specific mindset that combines several really important factors. And I'm going to start from the bottom here and work my way up. You have to have a certain level of humility. Innovators enter into a problem without necessarily knowing the answer. You might have a hypothesis, you might have an idea, but if you're so committed to your idea that you're not willing to listen and adapt and be humble and flexible as you solve that problem, you will find your innovations stagnating. So at base, the most important thing to have as an innovation function or an innovation professional is the humility to listen to your customers, listen to your stakeholders, and the flexibility to adapt quickly and nimbly with change. The next thing that you have to have is a tolerance for risk and an ability to communicate complicated problems and complicated solutions elegantly. Innovation is inherently a risky paradigm. You are, by your nature, trying to do new things or do existing processes in different ways, and that can be risky to folks. But you bridge that gap by being able to communicate broadly and clearly and bring people along for your solutions to ensure that you build a collaboration method around the way you innovate. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like here later in the PowerPoint. You have to bring these skills to bear within a problem-solving mindset, but you also have to be a visionary You need to know your North Star and where you want to take the long tail of your innovation. And then you need to figure out the route and ways of overcoming the problems that you might see on that route in order to be successful in getting towards your ultimate vision. And then last, but certainly not least, you need to have a leadership mindset with a critical thinking and, more to the point, intellectual agility that allows you to overcome obstacles, make sure people are motivated to achieve the goals that you're going after, and make sure that you can find and analyze insights in successes and in failures. Innovation is not a straight line. What you'll see here in a few slides is that it's in an incremental loop. And what you're doing as you pursue an innovation journey is you're constantly analyzing the results that you might see from any given experiment or test. And then you're building through your leadership capabilities a paradigm and commitment to the ultimate vision that you're driving your organization towards. Now, this framework looks like there are different elements, but in reality, this all combines together in an innovation leader's mind. Ultimately, the most important aspect of being a good innovator is really the humility and the flexibility. That is one of the reasons why State Farm has been such a successful innovator over the course of its 100-year history. State Farm's mindset at base is the good neighbor mindset. Everything we do considers our policyholders, our stakeholders, our agents, and our communities in the way that we go about our business. This is based in a vision that has values underpinning it. Our founder, G.J. Maherl, established an insurance company whose specific mission was to do good for our fellow men, and then to make that basis, the value and the good we provide to society, the underlying way we evaluate our work and our value to our community. Now, within this construct, you have to be humble and you have to be customer focused. You have to be willing to challenge convention on behalf of the customers and the policyholders or consumers that you serve. And our founding as an organization was grounded in this very, very simple truth. State Farm was started in 1922 because of two very specific dynamics. At this point in time in our history, insurance was written very, very differently than it was today. Rural customers, specifically customers in the exurbs, were paying extra for basically absorbing the risks of folks in urban areas. So for those of you who don't know, insurance at base is a group of people, a community of people, pooling their resources by paying premiums to effectively be there when some of our community members struggle or have losses. At the moment when you have a claim, it's one of the most vulnerable moments that you can be as a consumer. You get into a car accident, a tree branch goes through your home window, something happens, and you need somebody to help you get back on your feet. But in areas like, say, Bloomington, this risk, frankly, is just not as prolific as it is in, say, Chicago. G.J. Maherl understood this and wanted to have an insurance product that priced specifically to the consumers in those areas, allowing them to save money month in and month out, but also receive the same level of protection that was right for them. And that was ultimately the founding thesis of State Farm. One of our very first innovations was breaking up our premium, breaking up our policies into 6-month premiums. This allowed farmers and our consumers and policyholders in general to better plan and better manage their funds and their budget. Because as you know, farming is a very seasonal activity where from planting season to harvesting season, you have a very different set of activity and risk than the off season. These simple innovations, going from grouping policies for a whole state, including urban and exurban areas, and splitting that up, as well as allowing a 6-month policy period, was the founding principle of State Farm's overall business, and is one of the key innovations that you can now see today that all insurance companies operate under. But of course, it doesn't stop there. Very quickly, over the course of 7 years, we expanded to 7 states, because we realized that this value proposition, this need, was distributed broadly throughout the country. So once State Farm had identified its core innovations that led to its founding, those innovations were so relevant that it took off exponentially. To say that we went from being in one state to being in 30 states in 7 years, back in an era before the computer, is really dramatic. And that is the power of a good innovation, right? If you're listening to your customers and you're adapting your business to their needs, you have the ability to do things that other companies won't, and to accelerate aggressively your distribution and product growth to the customers that need it most. But of course, our innovation didn't stop in 1929. Through the 1930s and 1940s, as State Farm rapidly accelerated to be the #1 insurance company in America, we found a lot of business problems and challenges that we needed to solve, and ways that we had to scale and figure out new operating models to be able to achieve that. What you're seeing here is a very interesting set of photographs that articulate this point. Early on in the insurance industry, when you got a policy, you would have the policy underwritten, you would have somebody price it, you would have somebody, draft out the policy documents, and then you would do what's called binding the policy. Of course, a lot of this was done by a mail. And as the company scaled, we found an operational challenge, a business pain point. We just simply couldn't move paper around the office that State Farm held in downtown Bloomington fast enough. So what did we do? We did a business innovation whereby we gave some of our professionals roller skates, a technology that was available at the time, and they were able to very quickly and very nimbly zip around the office, improving our operational efficiency by basically skating through it. That might seem funny, because it is. And this is classic innovation. There is a business problem, a process that is holding you back and is harming your customers. And there is a very simple, lightweight, and effortless technology solution that can be brought to bear to solve that problem. So you can see that State Farm has a knack for identifying these opportunity spaces, either in the market or in our operation, and finding very elegant ways to solve for those problems. Similarly, in 1955, we recognized that there was actually what's called an actuarial consideration as it pertains to people who are good students and how riskily they drive. So we launched the very first good student discount in the insurance industry. I imagine most of the people on the call either are or were good students, and you probably recognize that almost every insurance company at this point has this exact same solution. So that's an example of how State Farm identified very early on in our history an opportunity to lend more value to customers in more ways, and deliver an innovation allowing us to be better priced for customers who were good students and taking care of their grades. Fast forwarding a little bit into the 80s, we were one of the first companies that made use of computers, both at the centralized home office level, as well as in our agency offices, to help customers price and underwrite insurance much more quickly and deliver insurance policies to consumers in a more digital fashion at that point in time. And of course, over the subsequent 40 years, we continue to innovate across all aspects of the insurance value chain. We were one of the first insurance companies to pilot the use of drones, both for underwriting, as in evaluating a home for its structural quality, as well as helping manage claims in disaster areas. We work with auto OEMs throughout the entire country to help improve the safety of automotive vehicles, as well as change the regulations around automotive governance. The fact that you have seatbelts mandated in cars today is in thanks to State Farm, right? We were one of the first organizations that worked with local jurisdictions to mandate seatbelts be installed in all vehicles, because we recognized that that would save people's lives. So the seatbelt laws and regulations, both from the manufacturing of the vehicle all the way to some of the compliance that you see in markets, is due in large part to State Farm helping to be active in the community to protect customers. We also use a lot of our technology and data assets to help make homes safer. We have a trail facility out here in Bloomington where we test the impacts of high winds and hurricanes on homes, as you can see in this image. We feed that information back into constituent groups like home builders associations, as well as regulators, to ensure that homes are built safe and sound against the types of losses that might come from storms or other types of weather events. So now that State Farm has grown, how does a company like State Farm drive innovation at scale? Remember, I mentioned that innovation at its core is a mindset and a methodology. You've heard a little bit about the mindset so far, being customer focused, having an appetite for risk, being flexible, being adaptable, being forward thinking. I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about the methodology and how we think about innovation in terms of the way we pursue innovative ideas at State Farm. And then we'll talk about how that methodology over time builds the muscles of innovation in a comprehensive and extensive fashion. So, good innovations at their base are iterative and customer focused. Anybody that's done iterative design practices or human-centered design practices, this will be familiar to you. What a good innovation team does is looks at the overall environmental analysis, looks at where consumers are, seeks to understand their pain points, and then finds iterative, ideated solutions to help address those pain points. Once you think you've got a good solution to a consumer pain point, you enter into this very flexible, rapid, iterative process where you test your concept, build a prototype, research it with consumers. We'll hold aside legal review and some other things here for a little later. But then ultimately, you want to experiment in a very quick and nimble fashion. This is where humility becomes most important. If you walk into a solution thinking that you know the answer, and you don't listen to the customers that you're testing your solution with, your innovation will ultimately fail. You have to be willing to listen to consumers as you UX research your product or your prototype, and then adapt to the way consumers are telling you they need the product developed or delivered. Every good technology company that you know of, from Meta to Google to Apple, has walked this yellow loop more often than not. Done well and done often enough and done with the right level of humility and human-centered design and listening skills, you will ultimately come down to an insight that allows you to build a business case and start building and launching your product. But it's important to know that as you're running around these loops, they never really stop. I mean, eventually you get into an environment where you've launched a product, like say an iPhone, and customers will tell you that they want that iPhone changed and developed. You'll iterate here a little bit, but then you can go back into a prototype and UX research sprint as you continue to develop your product overall. So while this looks like these cycles are independent stages, they are not. They are linked together. And a good innovation professional goes from one stage to another and back with the kind of nimbleness and fluidity that you need to be able to continually design and iterate into different products. So that's the methodology. Let's talk a little bit about how we think about identifying the kinds of pain points that you need to address in order to be a really good innovator. Remember earlier in the conversation, we talked about being visionary and having leadership and problem-solving skills. Ultimately, we all know as insurance professionals that our industry is going to look very, very different in 10 or 20 years than it does today. How do we know that? Because it was very different today than it was 10 or 20 years ago already. Change is constantly happening to us. And really good organizations have a vision for how we want to think about serving customers and how we want to approach our ways of solving their problems and achieving industry leadership via that process. Now, State Farm's overall vision and mission is to protect people from the risks of everyday life, help them recover from the unexpected, and realize their dreams. That is a big visionary statement. And operates under the assumption that no matter what you're trying to achieve as a consumer, State Farm will be here for you. The trick is things are changing all the time. And a good innovator starts by evaluating the macro trends that are impacting our overall community, society, stakeholders, everybody that is engaged in the overall environment in which you operate, in the overall market in which you operate. And one of the things that we've observed recently is that technology disruption is impacting all aspects of our society. As many of you are probably aware, we face significant social and political upheaval. We have environmental concerns and climate change concerns. The economy is constantly shifting and constantly driving changes in this environment, whether it's inflation or supply chain issues, or other more positive trends like stakeholder and social good considerations in the economy. A lot of this is being driven by technology, and technology is central to all of these overlapping macro trends. So we focus a lot of our effort considering what technologies are coming and what technologies are already here. Most of these you are probably already aware of, right? Customer expectations are rising. People are connecting together and creating business networks and ecosystems in peer-to-peer networks in very different ways. Technology is going from your desktop to your mobile phone to your wrist and your watch. Economies are being developed around peer-to-peer networks of sharing solutions driven by big platforms. People are moving around their cities and their environments in very different ways. These are already macro trends that have disrupted whole swaths of the economy. Before peer-to-peer networks existed, the way that you received funds or got a loan was very, very different than it is today. These are companies that didn't exist a decade ago that are disrupting their respective businesses. Similarly, Airbnb or Lyft or GetAround or some of these sharing economy providers didn't exist 12 to 15 years ago. And Airbnb now has more bookings and more reservations than any hotel chain on the planet. So what we've seen over the course of the last 10 to 15 years is wholesale disruptions of entire economies as technology has enabled people to connect together in new and different ways. The interesting thing is, this disruption is not slowing down, it's accelerating. You have customers demanding more transparency from the businesses they engage with. You're having the onboarding of sustainable models where consumers are demanding not that you just make profit, but that you make profit in a way that is good for the community and good for the environment. You have distributed networks now connecting people together and businesses together in what are called trustless technology-enabled environments. And a lot of this is being fueled and accelerated by artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, which will be coming on very aggressively over the course of the next decade. So as we consider macro trends that are coming, what we're seeing is that technology is disrupting our industry and has the potential to disrupt our industry, but that the rate and acceleration by which technologies are coming to bear across all industries is only increasing and is getting more rapid. So here's the thing. When you're the number one insurer and you have to preserve yourself against these macro trends, how do you do that? And you do that by being an innovator. You listen to your customers, you tell them that you want to solve their problems and you help them understand your mission and your vision. And then you keep working the iteration and the innovation mindset to find out ways that you could do that. State Farm is doing this in numerous ways. Number one, we're expanding our view of the residential industry to be more comprehensive and to be more proactive. So for those of you who may be unaware, a homeowner's insurer will help you understand where your risks are and will price you, meaning that if your house gets hit by a tornado, we'll be there to cover that loss. But we believe that the insurer of the future will be proactive and help you prevent losses in the first place. This is being responsive to consumers' needs. Consumers are worried about climate changes. They're worried about disasters. They're worried about changes in their community that might drive risks to their home or their person. And they're looking for insurance companies to help get ahead of it, frankly. This is an area where State Farm has significant assets, ranging from our data and our depth of data to our customer experience and our ability to understand risks and where they lie, where ultimately we will be moving towards being more preventative of losses and helping mitigate losses before they ever happen. Imagine that vision. Instead of an insurance company being there after your house receives some damage, or in the Bay Area where I come from, burns down, what if an insurance company could help you prevent your house from burning down in the first place, or help you prevent your house from having losses? This would be a material and tremendous shift in the industry, where instead of allowing something bad to happen to you and then being there for you when that happens, we're helping protect you and your family overall before incidents happen at all. So this is a major shift that State Farm is going to be leading in the insurance industry going forward. Similarly, consumers expect us to think more broadly about the way we do business and to map our efforts to the pain points and needs that they have generally. We are seeing a lot of customers come to us, particularly younger customers, with a real concern about environmental impacts and how we mitigate those impacts. Consumers can see the trends. They can see climate changing, disasters increasing, more disasters like tornadoes and hurricanes impacting communities, and they draw a dotted line straight to the insurance industry. We've researched this with consumers extensively. We've been humble and listened to them. They are telling us we need insurance companies to step up to help drive a more sustainable community. And at State Farm, we believe that we can lead the way there. Similarly, we are in the process of researching ways that we can help people identify risks, as I mentioned here, identify risks to their homes and identify where they could make their homes more safe, and then providing solutions to actually make those homes safer. We are doing this right now in roughly 150,000 homes with a product that we developed in the lab called Ting. Ting is a device that you put into your home which helps detect electrical anomalies that might cause home fires. Through this product, we have identified roughly 2,000 faults that would have ultimately resulted in a potential home fire for a customer. So this is an example of how we've used things like property profiles, health scores, and other data assets that we've got to prevent customers' homes from catching on fire. We do this because we believe that to be a really good neighbor, you must create solutions that keep people protected and helps people protect the things and the ones that they love in a more proactive fashion. And we did this through an innovation methodology that started with humility. If we were a traditional insurer, we might think our job is not to protect people. There are other companies that do that. Our job is to be there when they have a claim. But what consumers are telling us is they need help being more preventative. So we stepped into that gap and are providing that help, and we're going to do so in a major way. That comes with humility, problem solving, agility, adaptability. And when all those things combine together, you can achieve great things and you can achieve your ultimate vision. So that is at a high level how innovation works and how State Farm thinks about innovation at scale, as well as innovation for the future of our industry. I am grateful that you all had me here to talk through what we do. And I am thrilled to speak with you all and answer your questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Evan to open it up for Q&A.
Yes, thank you. So Haden, innovation isn't a traditional area of study in academics. Where can an individual learn about innovation?
It's a great question, Evan. Innovation is generally a combination of several fields that I believe are taught in academics. There is probably a human-centered design practice at most universities at this point. There is obviously a business and a research practice. There is computer science and technology practices at most universities at this point. A good innovator connects all of those dots. And so you start with a research, you start with a design, you start with the intersection between research and design, and have a customer explain to you what it is that they need and where they see opportunity. Then you get somebody with maybe some computer science skills to help you develop a product, and you might need a business person or a marketer to help get that product out the door. And so one of the challenges with innovation is if you have the right mindset and you have the right culture, it's highly unlikely that any one person can innovate on their own. You're going to need a team of people to go at something that you want to build and solve. But it starts with having a very small and nimble group of folks that can do anything from design to research to coding, to maybe some business skills. And if you watch a lot of entrepreneurial movies, right, you'll find out that some of the original founders, the 3 or 4 that you might see in the first scene of a movie, they have a combination of skill sets and they come together to solve a problem and a pain point that they're recognizing in the industry. So innovation is a team effort. And as you're thinking about how you can learn innovation, you can balance out your curriculum set to learn a few different parts of the business and innovation process. But ultimately, you're going to need teams to help you create new products and innovations.
Noted. Appreciate that answer. And another one, do external pressures like inflation and supply chain management affect how a company approaches innovation?
Oh, yes. As you're probably aware, insurance is highly impacted by inflationary pressures. Things from the supply chain or other inflationary pressures around cost of parts, cost of vehicles, they go straight to our bottom line. And so when we think about consumer pain points or business pain points, we consider when those impacts are coming to us along the macro trends and how urgent and necessary they are. But the process remains the same. So if we are in a place where, say, inflationary pressures and supply chain issues are making it harder for cars to be repaired on time, that has practical impacts for our customers around how long they have a rental, how they think through other solutions to make sure they can get from point A to point B while their car is being repaired. And our claims team and our innovation lab partner with them actively to figure out solutions to that. So part of the challenges with innovation is knowing where to focus your efforts on the long tail versus what is necessary right here and right now. But generally speaking, if you are developing innovations that solve for a pain point, even if it is a short-term pain point or a hopefully short-term pain point like inflation or supply chain issues, that innovation will still pay dividends on the long tail. So as you're thinking through ways to solve for very specific issues and challenges that you might have right here and right now, it's important that you think about how those things scale to your business overall and whether they have longevity and long tail impacts that can be beneficial to you and to the customer.
Awesome. And we finally have some questions rolling in. Depending on the market, investment in innovation and research can be the first to be cut in the face of economic downturn. As a leader, how do you approach this challenge when your team efforts may not immediately be tied to business profit?
That's a great question, Cameron. One of the things that's most important in innovation as a practice is ensuring that you're paying your own way and that you're lending consumer value or business value for the efforts that you take on. So what you'll see here in the develop portion of the process is a milestone around business casing. Eventually, as you want to develop a new product or service, you have to quantify what it'll cost to the company to develop, and then you have to commit to paying that investment back by delivering either consumer value, business value, or both. One of my first very good product development coaches used to tell me that he thinks about product development as a loan. He is taking out a loan from the business, and he is going to commit to the business to pay that loan back with interest on a timeline. And that is a very important discipline as you think about innovation and product development generally. That doesn't to say that everything has to succeed. It's not like we're going to mortgage your career if you fail to pay back an innovation. The reason why you work through this research process so diligently over and over again is to really understand how a product or solution will land with customers in the market so you can justify the business case with confidence. A lot of unpack there. We can kind of go into that over time, and it's something that you will learn as you progress through your career. But all innovations have to have some baseline in business to ensure that they are actually being developed with an eye towards the financial underpinnings of the company that you're working for.
Noted. A question from Michael. Most companies say that they want innovation and creative thinking, but typically reward thinking that falls within a set of norms or cut programs that don't have a clear return on investment. How have you seen State Farm encourage innovation, especially within your career?
Boy, that's a really, really good question. There's a few ways to think about this. Innovation as a practice can deliver bottom line benefit, right? So that goes to your point, Michael, about falling within a certain set of norms or cutting programs that don't have a clear return on investment. If you're working with your business partners to understand where their operational challenges are and where they might have cost leakage or other P&L impacts, profit and loss impacts, you can find innovative solutions that can do the same business process in newer, different ways, just more efficiently. So that endears you to your business partners. It also helps ensure that when companies struggle with, say, financial viability overall, you've got an ability to prove your case that your innovations and spending money in innovations has a bigger bang for the buck than doing things the way that you've always done it. It goes partially back to the prototyping process and making sure that what you're building can work, and partly to the business casing process. But ultimately, good innovators should be constantly thinking about how $1 spent in the innovation function can pay back $10 into the business overall. As it pertains to State Farm specifically, State Farm as a company has always had an innovative mindset. When we talk about things like preventing losses before they happen, it's easy to articulate the way that that impacts the business. A homeowner's loss, depending on the kind of loss it is, could be $70,000 or $150,000. As we think about ways that we're prototyping solutions, if we believe we've got a viable path to keep homes from catching on fire, like what I represented here with the Ting product, I know that every fire I defer can save the company $110,000 to $130,000. That is a pretty big return on investment that you then justify by going through that agile and nimble process. So I don't expect State Farm to just encourage our innovation efforts. None of us should expect to have blank checks. That's not how any of this works. But what we do as a team is think through where the business problems are, prototype and design solutions that can solve for those business problems. And then I can say to my leadership, who happens to be the CFO, making this device like a Ting for 50, 60 bucks and giving it to a customer might save us $170,000. Now, it's not straight through like that. It's not like every single Ting is going to prevent a home fire. In insurance, you have what's called frequency, which is the rate at which incidents happen, and you have severity, which is the cost of those incidents happen. You can easily calculate how many homeowners policies do we have. If I wanted to get a Ting to every one of them, what would that cost? If I assume these fires are going to happen at this rate with this average payout, what would that return? And now you've got a business case, right? So ultimately, it's on the innovator to make a case for and command continued investment in innovation through the way you go about developing products and services and the way you understand the business. And that's why we go through that iterative process that I showed you a few slides ago.
Great. And it looks like we have one more. And if anybody else has questions, please feel free to send them in. But how do you integrate innovation into a company that may be slow to accept new ideas?
Oh boy, that's a great question. One of the things that we preach on our team here is to focus on the volume, velocity, and value of the work we do. So when you run into challenges at a legacy company is when you're trying to run around and tell everybody in the business how they should do their jobs differently. That's not what any of us want. Nobody wants to have somebody come and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm new here, but let me tell you all the ways that we can make your work easier and better. I tend to focus my methodology in grounding with the consumer. I research heavily what consumers are doing. And my team spends a lot of time looking at consumer research and consumer insights, talking to consumers as we design and test and prototype different solutions, and then figuring out ways that we can craft these solutions in a very thin, what's called a thin client, right? Or a very interactive, clickable prototype to gauge interest. Once we have a methodology where consumers are telling us, yes, I would buy this and I love this experience and I like the way that you are developing this solution and bringing it to me, it gives you broad authorization to go through the organization and say, I have this idea, but it's not my idea. It's the consumer's idea. We're solving their pain point. And if you have a consumer-focused organization that is really centered on what your policyholders or what your end users want and need, it endears you to the business partners that you'll be working with and to your executives, because they know that you're not trying to disrupt the business just for reasons. You're trying to deliver a particular product or service that has value to the customers that you all jointly, collectively serve. So that's always been my method of handling it. Ground your efforts extensively in the yellow circle here, right? Because through this process, you will find quantitative and qualitative evidence that helps you justify making changes in the operating model or in the way that you go about business here in the gray circle that'll be based on evidence and consumer feedback, which is ultimately the coin of the realm in what we do.
Great. A question from Jackie. How often do other competitor-launched products influence the focuses of your group?
Oh boy, that's a great question. All the time. Part of what we do in this process when it comes to Part of what we do in this process when it comes to macro trends and segment analysis and pain point analysis is look at the competitive frame. So for those of you who might be marketers or business majors on the call, a good strategy includes what's called the 4 Ps and the 3 Cs: product, packaging, price, and placement of the 4 Ps, I believe. And then consumer, company, meaning the one you work for, and competitor, meaning the competitors. And we pay close attention to all of those. Now, my personal preference is that we're so far ahead of the competitive set that they're responding to us, not the other way around. And I think State Farm, as I showed you earlier about some of our innovations, has had a good penchant for doing that over our history. But ultimately, if you're really a good innovator and a good strategist, you're monitoring the consumer side of the market first, but then you're very quickly thereafter monitoring the competitor side of the market. And consumers will tell you. We've had consumers in concept tests around the sustainability pillar I showed you earlier tell us flat out that, gosh, I really would expect Geico or Progressive to give this to me, because they see the connection between climate and loss and insurance. They get it intuitively, and that's their insurer. So they thought that would be something that they should provide. But one of the things that we learn as a part of the definition and concept testing process, you can do what's called a branded and unbranded concept sort or conjoint, where you can say to a consumer or a batch of consumers, 5, 10,000 of them, here is a concept we're considering. If you got this concept for State Farm, how interested are you? If you got it from Progressive, how interested are you? And you can swap out variables. You can swap out brand as a variable and see what consumers think is most likely and believable for your brand to deliver versus your competitor brands. So it's a kind of a long-winded answer, but throughout this entire process, we're managing customer expectations first, but then we're monitoring what our competitors do to see if they're finding new ways to solve for consumer needs that we may have missed.
Great. And a question from Cameron. Regarding an innovation brain trust and pulling the right people for pursuing innovation projects, does State Farm partner with other organizations and project pursuits? Based on your experience, do you agree or disagree with this approach?
I agree. And yes, we do. We partner with universities, we partner with venture capital firms, we partner with incubators, we partner all over the ecosystem. And generally speaking, nobody owns innovation and nobody owns good ideas. Innovation is a methodology that anybody can adopt, and great ideas come from anywhere. When we think about broadly our innovation funnel as a labs and innovation team, it spans from some work that our scouting team does, looking for and hunting for great companies to invest capital in, like actually give money to develop their products, to partnerships that we establish with universities and other areas of the innovation ecosystem to help mentor and coach and develop entrepreneurs, but then potentially give them a contract and bring their product into State Farm and help them find ways that they can tune it up and scale. If you're, it kind of goes back to the humility aspect of the mindset. You should be willing and able and open to listen to input and listen to ideas from anyone, anywhere, anytime. And then frankly, have the leadership mindset and the problem solving mindset to help the idea manager that you're talking with tune up and curate and hone their idea based on your feedback. So there's multiple ways that you can take things to market. And it all starts with generating an understanding of the consumer pain point and an idea on how you solve for that pain point. And once you get outside the walls of your organization and start networking with folks all around the innovation ecosystem, you'll find out that a lot of people see the same pain points you do. You all are insurance consumers on some level, and you're more to the point, people who drive or commute via different transit solutions or live in home or condos or rentals. You exist in an environment right now that interacts with insurance. You all have ideas, and people that have no experience in insurance whatsoever have ideas on how insurance can be better. As an innovator, you really have to be humble and be willing to talk to all of those constituents if you want to round out your thinking about what's possible in your space.
That's a great perspective. Well, that is all the questions that we have, Haden, and I'd like to speak on behalf of myself and the audience that your input is appreciated, and we can't thank you enough. So awesome.
Well, thank you, Evan. It's been a pleasure.
We really want to thank you for you and State Farm and all the team members behind the scenes who supported you to prepare and deliver this really highly educational talk on driving innovation at scale and that importance of mindset, methodology, and muscle. And we're extremely proud at Illinois Wesleyan University to be a State Farm priority school. State Farm's impact on IWU as a company and through your employees and your agents, it's visible everywhere, ranging from scholarships to investments in buildings and facilities, like I'm sitting in State Farm Hall right now. Support of our faculty, summer internships for students like Evan, full-time jobs you provided to our graduates, and engagement with students, alumni, and the Bloomington Normal community on campus and today online. We're extremely fortunate to have State Farm as a good neighbor and a committed partner in educating past, current, and future generations of Titans. To our audience, I want to thank you all for attending and asking such great questions. Evan, thank you so much for moderating. You did a great job. And again, everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you can attend a future Titan Talk. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.